Hello, this is Martin Brossman. I think we've all been moved and touched and disturbed by the tragic shooting in Texas that occurred. And I asked my friend Tom Golden to join me, that is an expert on men's issues and men and healing. And I'd like us to talk about it today, Tom, because it's such an issue that's touching everybody.
Yes, yeah, it's a tough one.
And one of the things I want to talk about is something that I've seen across so many of these horrific young male crisis, shootings and massacres, is the absence of active fathering. And that's
Yes.
what I'd like us to talk about, because you've done a lot of work on it. And it seems to be the one issue missing in the conversation.
Yes. Yeah, everyone screams about gun control and keeping guns out of people's hands. And really, if you look at it, this is a mental health problem. It's a problem of mental health. And this guy that did this was not mentally stable. Something was wrong with his brain. And if you look a step farther, then you see that what's wrong with him and what may have been a causative factor is fatherlessness. We know that fatherlessness causes more violence. That has been shown over and over again by the research, but everyone ignores it, Martin. They just ignore it. Yeah. And they did this research study one time where they took 536 neighborhoods from poor and rich and black and white and Hispanic and whatever, and they gauged the amount of violent crime in those neighborhoods, and they gauged the amount of fatherlessness in the neighborhoods. And what they found was, as fatherlessness goes up, violence goes up. No matter whether it's a white or black neighborhood, no matter whether it's rich or poor, always, even in the rich white neighborhoods, if they were fatherless, they had more crime. So we know that this is connected. This is not something that's mysterious. We know that fatherlessness creates problems of crime and violence, and we're not doing anything about it. It's really a shame.
But we still seem to be almost discounting the value that the father brings to the table.
That's what's been happening. 50 years of discounting men and shaming men and toxic masculinity and all that kind of crap, which completely ignores the importance and essentialness of fathers in the home.
Right. And this doesn't take away anything to the value of the mother. Actually, it's a complementary piece. It's critical.
You gotta have both. You gotta have both, man.
And this is something that I remember over 15 years saying, looking at society and going, we're just going to have more and more violence because we aren't addressing this core issue. And it means someone's playing an active role. So I want to talk about that, because just because there's a warm body present that might be called a father, he might be addicted or unavailable or something, but it's an active role, paying attention. I mean, clearly there was a lot of there were red flags we find out in almost all these cases, that if a father figure was around, actively involved, they go, something's wrong with Junior.
Right. Not only that, but he'd set limits. He'd say, Junior, no guns for you, pal, until you brighten up a little bit. I mean, he would lock down. He would lock in on him. I mean, look at Georgia. I think it was Georgia where the fathers decided they're going to go into the schools and take charge. And the fathers went in. Within a week, man, everything changed. Just like the old elephant stories where, these elephants, these young male elephants are out of control. All they had to do was bring in an older male elephant. He set them straight. I mean, it's like, this is what we need to do. And no one is doing it.
Yeah. And it's just not popular. It's not in the press. It's not being brought up. But that's why I want
it's worse than that.
This.
It's much worse than that. I mean, we are actively sabotaging fathers in the home by shaming men and by the family court system, which is tearing men from their children when they oftentimes have done nothing wrong. Nothing. I mean, this is where we're sabotaging ourselves. The more dependent you make people with welfare, et cetera, the more fathers are not, quote, needed in the home. And then there's fatherlessness. It's a mess.
And it goes up. Because
it goes up, baby.
It's that role of so many women over the years of me leading a men's group and writing the book. I would have them call and say, the quote would be, I know how to fight with my daughter, but I don't know how to deal with my son. In fact, you wrote the book. I asked you to write on it.
Yeah.
and mothers, but there's a fundamental different experience for someone if their core was raised with testosterone versus estrogen. I mean,
Yes.
just a different perception. It changes so much.
Everything.
And the young males need that. And as someone in my life, even when I'm out working or in an environment, I'll see wonderful young men and we'll start building a connection and just talk to them. You know, what are you up to? What are you going to do? And why I'm hanging out? Well, what do you really want to do? And there'll be something that occurs and you'll notice nobody was there to see them, not shame them, but see them first, but then also challenge them, not challenging with shaming, but see them, see their potential, challenge them. And really the idea of encouraging calculated risk, not reckless risk, just calculated. So they have, the other thing is young males have very little chance of winning in anything except video games. So that's going to draw to them. When you can't win in anything but that, they'll be drawn to that.
Right. And, you know, as you and I remember being of a certain vintage, when we grew up, I mean, there were men around who were setting limits. There were men around who were telling you, you needed to do it this way. There were men around who were encouraging you to get better and better and better. I was thinking about it the other day. I listed in my head 6 or 7 men who during my life have brought me to where I am today. And they did that in a way that was harsh sometimes, but it was loving. You know, and that's what fathers can do, harsh and loving at the same time. And man, it really helped me. And I feel bad for all these young men out there who do not get any of that. It's a shame.
And to me, why I want to bring this up is if somebody sees this and agrees, just ask questions. Where was the father? Was he actively involved? What's going on? What are we doing to support fathers? Not shame them, not just blame them, but support them. And look for small ways in your community to acknowledge, you know, men respond very well to just a little bit of acknowledgement too, is what I've learned.
That's fuel for the masculine, is admiration and respect.
Those acknowledgement without a yeah, but, right?
That's right.
Thank you for getting that out. And I'd like, next time would you help me with this? So simple. So simple, and it works so well.
Yes.
Many of us are in some ways simple creatures. And
yes, indeed.
Simple acknowledgement and honoring and praising is so critical.
Yes.
And but also, like you said, challenging. I love the idea of kind of challenging and developing healthy fierceness, not violence, not rashing out, because you often hear these kids, oh, he was so quiet and soft, and then it lashed out and blew up. Well, that's not developing strength.
Right.
That's to me, I don't know the terms, but I've heard the term passive aggressive. That's like, you know, quiet until you blow up, then something extreme and dangerous happens.
Yes. Yes. No, you need that fierceness, and it's rare today. Because fierceness has been pathologized. I mean, we call fierceness toxic now.
Yeah.
You know, so men are very leery of being fierce, and for good reason. When they do, they get shamed.
Right. And the problem is when it gets suppressed, it comes out in explosive ways like this. When it isn't directed, when it isn't managed, when it isn't disciplined, when it isn't developed. This is what we see over and over, and we'll keep seeing it.
Yeah.
If it's not a firearm, it's going to be a car. If it's not a car, it's going to be some homemade bomb, like the Boston, situation. If it's not that, it'll be something else. And to me, I think one of the tragedies in this country is the lack of focus on the value and support of fathers, what they bring to the table. And I believe we'll continue to see rampant violence like this. There'll be some new tool. They'll find some new method until we start getting this addressed. It crosses all cultures.
Yes, I agree. But I would add one thing, and that is that the number of mass shootings like this is lower in the United States than it is in many, many other countries around the world.
Interesting.
And most people don't have any clue that that's the case, but it's the truth. I mean, our media focuses on how bad it is here, but they completely leave out, because they're probably ignorant, that all around the world, these things are happening. And it's a lot worse around the world, you know? It's
Yeah, I'll put any information you recommend in the chat, but this is,
I'll put a link in there, a PDF file that is the study that looks at all this, that if people are interested.
start with the conversation. Look around. Just don't buy what I just said blank. Just notice when you see the extreme things happening, ask, was there an active father? And I don't mean just a body there. Like, I didn't even know he was downstairs making bombs. That's not an active father. Someone who's engaged with them, challenging them, supporting them, but also
and blessing him.
And
blessing him.
And blessing him. Yes, and blessing him.
That's what these boys need. They need a man who is with them, who loves them, who's going to bless them, but is going to hold them accountable.
Yep, that's it. Well,
there
thanks,
you
Tom.
go.
And again, this is a show I felt very important for us to voice and get out because it's been moving me and affecting me. And
it's such an important message.
I still think it's the most important message.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone out there to go to their representatives and say, what are you doing about getting fathers back in the home?
Yeah.
They're going to look at you and go, what?
Yeah.
So you tell them that's their responsibility. They are screwing things up. They're screwing our country if they do not get fathers back in the home.
Yeah. That's excellent. Yeah. Thanks, folks. This completes this video, and Tom has a number of books. Tom just mentioned one or two of the books if they want to look them up, especially The Mothers Raising Sons.
Yeah, there's one called Helping Mothers Be Closer to Their Sons, which is all about helping moms understand boys. It's kind of focused for single mothers who don't have a dad around to explain to her what the heck masculinity is about. And then there's another one, The Way Men Heal, which is a tiny little 50-page book that helps men understand what they're going to go through when they go through trauma. And it helps them kind of walk them through it. It gives examples.
I think that's good for wives and men and fathers and sons.
Honestly. Yeah, that's good for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to read. It's real quick, but there's so many things about the way men heal that no one knows about, Martin. And everyone expects men to heal like women, and that is a trap, guys. It's a trap. Don't fall in that trap. Read this little book first.
Yep, excellent. Thanks so much, Tom.
Thank you.
I appreciate this. Is Martin Brossman, and thanks for joining me today. If you find it valuable, please share it with other people.